Hello, welcome to this group discussion on research. This is the first class, an introductory class on this course which we have on Introduction to Research. I am Pratap. I am a professor in the Department of Metallurgical and Materials Engineering at IIT Madras, and these are our panelists.
Hi, I'm Arun Tangirala. I'm a professor in the Department of Chemical Engineering at IIT Madras.
Hi, I'm Panikumar Gandham, professor in Department of Metallurgical and Materials Engineering.
Hi, I am Abhijit Deshpande. I am a faculty member in Department of Chemical Engineering.
Hello, I'm Andrew Tangaraj. I'm a faculty in the Electrical Engineering Department, IIT Madras.
Right, so when we discuss about research, I think the aspects that we need to look at are that many students aspire to get degrees in which are basically research based degrees, and often based on our background, a particular person may not be completely aware of what is involved in getting such a degree, and how is it perhaps different from other degrees. So the first first topic that we will discuss today is what does a research degree such as MPhil, MS or PhD imply or represent?
I think what I would say is that it's really different from the undergraduate degree that normally one pursues, say BTech or a BSc and so on. Because normally in such undergraduate degrees, you do a lot of courses, whereas in research degrees, what we normally think of is doing something new, contributing, first of all, knowing what is there out in that area, picking our favorite area, and most importantly, contributing something. It may be a small contribution, but drops make an ocean. So that really involves a lot of effort from our side. Whereas in a course-based program like BTech and so on, we take courses, we learn. There's only a small part of discovering something. It's more of learning. Whereas in research-based degrees, you are trying to really discover something, think, and then postulate, validate, perform certain experiments, and so on. So there is a lot of self-contribution in these research-based degrees, I would say.
So
Yeah, adding on to that, so that's the difference, as Arun pointed out, that there are various things which depend on oneself during a research degree. So a course-based degree is where the exams, the assignments, everything is sort of catered, and everything is well designed. But in a research degree, a lot of it depends on the researcher himself or herself, and those are the aspects we will be discussing further on as to what is meant by these aspects of research.
So one crude way of comparing these two things is if you conduct a final exam for a course at the end of a subject of a class, you write a final exam. Everybody is supposed to turn in a very similar kind of answer script, right? So there's a key and you write similar answers and you all get good marks. And in fact, at the end of a MS or PhD, you cannot submit a thesis which is similar to anybody else's thesis. You're supposed to produce something which is unique and different, and only you have done the work. So that kind of represents the big shift between a normal degree course and a PhD. So have that in mind. It's not just one more degree after your MPhil, but or after your master's. It's a really different sort of a degree when you pursue a PhD.
Yeah, so that brings to the point about the qualitative difference in PhD with other degrees. One may have a misconception that the amount of work, the quantity of the work at a bachelor's degree, you do a little bit more maybe than you can get a master's degree, but then you do twice of that, that doesn't mean that you can get a PhD degree. PhD is a qualitatively a very different degree where you are training yourselves to become a researcher, and it's one different in also a sense of the ability of a PhD. Once you have finished the degree, you are also expected to be at a level that you could guide another person to do a PhD. It's very different that from other disciplines. So qualitatively there's a big difference.
yeah, and so I would also like to add that when you do an undergraduate degree, the boundaries are well defined. There's a start point, and exactly you can tell exactly when you are halfway through the degree and when you have completed the degree. You can tell on the day you join which is your graduation day, which is the day you pick up your degree. All those things are well defined. In a research-based degree, it is open-ended. So there is a lot of discovery in the process. You have to figure out when you have learnt enough and you're able to contribute enough and you have become a master or somebody who is well known in that field, who has contributed a lot into that field, and therefore you are in a position to pick up a PhD degree. So that's very different from typical undergraduate degree. So we will now look at this question, what is research? So I will maybe start with Andrew and
Okay. So, okay. So I keep coming back to this contrast between a course and research. So let's take again a very concrete difference. So you have a textbook and a research paper. Okay. So I think these are the two things you can compare. A textbook is accumulated knowledge over several years. Somebody has understood and formalized that knowledge in his head, and he's putting it out in a sequence of subjects so that somebody else can learn. That is a textbook, and that's where you learn, and that's what you do. When you do research, it's completely unclear what will happen to that work after that. You're going to the real cutting edge of current day development of the subject, and you're trying to push the boundaries in a direction in which nobody has thought of before. Okay, so, and nobody can be sure what will happen to that work after that. Maybe it's very interesting, maybe it's not very exciting later on. You cannot predict anything, and when you do it, it will never be organized in a very clean, systematic way like a textbook is. And you'll have to organize it in your head and take time over it. So to me, the textbook versus research paper difference, or maybe a cutting edge research paper difference, is what comes to mind when I answer the question, what is research?
Yeah, often when students ask, is there any textbook I can refer to so that I could do my research? Maybe if there were a textbook, then maybe it's too late to do research in that area.
Exactly.
So I would also like to add that, in fact, reiterate what Andrew just said, that the beginnings of research are quite hazy. In fact, it's so foggy and hazy that you may think there is nothing, nothing is clear to you in the beginning. It's only the passion that drives you. So what is research? A big integral part of research is learning. That's a very important part. In fact, you see the term search in research. So you have to search and discover. So the searching is for both learning and for discovering. And that, of course, we'll expand shortly on that as to what you do to carry out this searching part in research. But I think the important part is the beginnings are hazy, but there is a joy to the discovery, provided you actually persistently pursue what you want to really find out and so on. In fact, it's like going into a city where you don't know what the destination is. You know that the city is good, you've heard. It's your favorite city. It's like choosing your favorite field of research, but you don't know which monument you want to visit, where you want to spend most of your time. Yeah. And then, so in the beginning, that's where you do a literature survey, find out what are all the interesting monuments or sightseeing places in the city, and then you pick your favorite monument and or your sightseeing place and spend more time trying to know what is there, and maybe contribute to that place and so on. So it is, there is a lot of trial and error in research, and you have to be prepared for it.
Yeah, I think that's a very great analogy that Arun just gave you. And in fact, we would like to just share this quote from Albert Einstein, which basically highlights this fact that the research that we do involves exploring unknown territory, so to speak, in a particular area. So he said, if we knew what we were doing, it would not be called research, would it? So that pretty much highlights the point that there is something new. It is not something that you can just go look up and then say, now I have done the research. So there is something new, and you are going to be the person who searches for this new stuff, finds it, and then shares it with all the people around you.
Yeah, the other aspect of research, even though we are trying to give you in 1 hour some sort of gist of what might be research, so from so far discussion, it's already clear that it's very, very open-ended.
Yeah, in fact, you need to research to find out what is research also. Right?
Your answer will be different from our answer.
Exactly.
So there's another point about that. There are some prefixes used for research, for example, incremental research and path-breaking research. Generally, people don't start off saying that I'm going to now do path-breaking research. That's not how we go about. We do have a structured way of going about performing our routine activities for research, and then we are trying to incrementally add knowledge to what is already there. And in the process, by serendipity or because our mind is prepared, we are looking for clues, and then path-breaking research happens. So it usually happens rather than you go out starting to do that.
And I just want to add that in research, you are the one who questions and you're also the one who finds the answers, right? And compared to textbook thing, where the questions are there and you have to answer.
Yeah, somebody
Whereas
else
in
knows
research,
the answer and he
right.
just wants you to write it down.
But in research, you ask questions and you find answers. The only thing that's important to keep in mind is you ask relevant questions,
Yeah.
not obsolete questions.
Yeah.
And you give answers that make a difference.
Yeah, that's true.
So through this discussion, some of the points that we are going to look at are philosophical points like what we have been looking at, discussing so far, which are the grand scheme of things within which we do carry out our research or we look at our research and so on. There are also a lot of mundane activities that happen in that actually result in the process through which we do our research in universities and so on. So we will also touch upon those because those are the day-to-day things that we get involved in as we try to carry out a research. So one of those things is selection of a research area and your selection of your guide or advisor. So these are the first things that you would do when you try to formally get into research. Of course, you could do research on your own as an independent person, but most of us are not doing that, in our own lab, hidden away from everybody. We do it as a part of a community, a scientific community, which often is thriving in university setting, also in research labs and in industry R&D settings and so on. So at least in the university setting, one of the key things is you have to find the area that you would like to work on and the guide that you would like to work with. And there is no, in many of these things, there's no single way in which you do it, but the area you are interested in is something that you have to understand on your own. I mean, this could be due to a lot of general reading you have done over the years as a student at various levels, and you have found something, some particular area that appeals to you, that interests you in terms of the kinds of details that they are looking at, the manner in which the area is being explored and so on. And so that is one way in which you can get a sense of, this is an area that you would be interested in. You also have, through your general reading, you will also have a sense of how much impact that area has to the neighborhood you're in, or to the scientific community or the world overall. So that may also influence your interest in a particular research area. So there's multiple factors that influence what you may get interested in, and you should take all of those into account. But it is, I would say fundamentally it is very important that you should be interested in that area. If you end up trying to do research, if you just say that I want a degree and I want a PhD degree, and you just go join a university and you just pick up whichever advisor is willing to pick you up, the biggest problem that will come is the day-to-day, the exploration that you do, which is part of your research, will not appeal to you. And if it does not appeal to you, it is difficult for you to do good work in that area. So you have to look at it in the inverse manner. First of all, it should appeal to you. Only then you should be getting into it. So that is something that I wanted to share with you.
One important aspect of this selection of both research areas and guide and advisors is the central element in your thought should not be worry. In the sense, we always worry about, will I get a job afterwards? Is this area really relevant? Is this so there are a lot of things associated with worry. Actually, one should look at it as a challenge. And so if you look at it from that point of view, because we've emphasized enough that it will be you who is the focus of this. So in general, one can say that in most research areas and with many guides and advisor, if you drive, you will be able to actually make a very good very good thesis, and in the end actually use that for furthering your overall career goals. So central element should not be worry, but central element should be challenge and interest. And that's how you should try to make this decision.
So maybe I should touch upon the more mundane aspect of selecting area and advisor. So typically, I mean, this is what happened to me. I think for most people, this is what happened. Maybe in your undergraduate or postgraduate studies, there was a course that you picked up and there was something you did which really appealed to you. Maybe it was taught to you in a very nice fashion, and that instructor also appealed to you. So this is typically how it happens. So it can even happen in the undergraduate stage. You do a subject, you really like it. Then maybe as a postgraduate student entering a university, you take a course with someone, you really like how the course went, how the person handled the class, the subject matter, and also how they interacted with you. So all these things together can appeal to you, and then you might want to think, okay, I can do a PhD in this area. I like this area and do it. This is a more mundane way in which it happens. But I've seen many students do this. I think this is something, it shows that the student is not very prepared, I think. So they would take an undergraduate core area, like in electrical engineering, there's an area called signals and systems. They would take that area, and they'll say, I want to do research in signals and systems. It's fine, but except that all research in electrical engineering is in signals and systems. So that's the difficulty. So while you like a subject, you should also know that just because you learnt it in undergraduate, you cannot do research directly in that area. I mean, it's very highly specialized beyond that. So your area will get more and more and more specialized as you go deeper and deeper into it, and you have to kind of anticipate that. But like everybody said, the guiding principles are, yes, you should be interested in the area, and I also say you'll be motivated by your advisor both as a technically capable person and also as a person. I mean, I think all these things go into having a good fit between you and your advisor.
So I would like to add that among all the degrees that a student normally undergoes, PhD perhaps is the longest duration on a single aspect with a single person. So it draws for about 4 or 5 years sometimes, maybe even 6 or 7 in some sciences. So it's very important to pick the right advisor who has both the energy to drive you to take up the challenging aspects of the work, and also the experience to guide you when you are into the difficulties coming over some of these topics. So I think choosing an advisor is very important.
Yeah, there is also a style of your own and the advisors, and I think there is a good bit of thought that you can give to that also, because sometimes those can also influence, because as we've said, it's day-to-day interaction over such a long period.
Yeah, I think it's a very important point. As you must have probably now guessed, there is no definitive formula that we can give to choose an advisor or an area. I think as far as choosing an advisor is concerned, as Abhijit just mentioned, also mental compatibility. I think the style of thinking, whether it matches. Some students are really inclined towards carrying out theoretical work, while some students are made for experimental work. So you can, I think it goes back again to the same point that we mentioned earlier. You need to introspect a bit and then figure out what suits you. What you're interested in, whether a theoretical work or an experimental work or a mixed work and so on, or you want to do really the cutting edge stuff and so on. So then, of course, today there is no dearth of information. You can really go to a website, find out the profiles, check out the publication record, even probably read a couple of publications and so on, to figure out whether the work really excites you. And remember, in all of this, there is no correct answer. There is always a discovery process. There are cases in which students have switched advisors. Of course, that's a very small proportion. But even if that happens, you should not be really getting depressed about that. Okay? So what is important is upfront to be very frank and honest with your advisor, express what your interests are, and also listen to what your potential advisor has got to say, and do your own little bit of research about the advisor. Exactly. And the same goes with the area as well. Yeah. You have to really introspect. As Andrew said, there are subjects that interest you, but that's just a beginning. It is just giving you an idea of what to get into. And you have to really probe a bit more into a broad field to figure out where you are. And I think the guide is a very appropriate term, going by the previous analogy. We said research is about going into an unknown territory or visiting an unknown city. And you're visiting monuments, remember, you have guides telling you, giving the history about it. So here also, the guides will tell you, when you pick a certain area, and when you're talking to a potential advisor, you can find out from the potential advisor whether it is worth carrying out research, how crowded this area is, how crowded this bus that you're going to get into is, whether there are any empty seats or you have to stand for a long time, right? So keep that in mind. There is a lot of trial and error, but your gut feeling will tell you whether this is the right area and this is the right advisor, right? It's also a discovery process.
And I would like to stress also, perhaps for our country, the importance of homework. Generally, it is known that we have been used to spoon feeding most of our schooling system and later on. So it's very important to do adequate homework before we decide upon whether to do PhD, and then also on what topic and with whom.
So the groundwork is very essential.